Hi ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to ITSnippets. Today I'm going to show you how to install Docker on a Raspberry Pi and Portainer to manage your containers. So let's get started. The first thing we have to do, as we always have to do with a Raspberry Pi, is create a new image. We do that by clicking on the start bar and running the Raspberry Pi imager. Say yes to user account control when it kicks in. If you don't have Raspberry Pi imager, it can be downloaded from the raspberrypi.org website. Once it's opened up, click choose OS. I always run Raspberry Pi Other and a Raspberry Pi OS Lite. I'm going to choose my storage, and I've got an 8GB SD card inserted, which you can see here as my F drive. You can always confirm by opening Windows Explorer and looking for the SDHC. You see E and F are actually, for some reason it's split across both, are showing as my drive. And we can confirm that again. If I click on SDHC, you can see it shows E and F. So it's one drive basically partitioned into two. Okay, once that's been done, we just click write and wait for that to finish. I've not seen this error before, but I'm just going to say no. I'll just clear the settings just now. It's warning me that all existing data and the card will be lost. It's asking me to click yes, and now we just have to wait. Cancel that just now. It's just because it's unmounted the drive in order to format it. Okay, so that's finished. I can click cancel again, and the stupid pop-up that comes up, it's complaining F drive's not available. That's fine. It's asking me to format again, cancel, and as you can see, it now says you can remove the SD card from the redirect that's been completed. So click continue. We can close Raspberry Pi imager. So what we're going to do now is we're going to remove the SD card and place it in a Raspberry Pi. Okay, I put my SD card inside my Raspberry Pi and I've turned it on, and I've given it a couple of minutes to boot. So I'm going to SSH into my box. Now you can use whichever SSH client you like, such as PuTTY or PowerShell. And who's followed my tutorials recently know I've started using MobaXterm, so I'm just running that just now. My Raspberry Pi IP I know is on 192.168.0.56. I've shown you how to find a machine that you've connected to your network as IP using Nginx IP scanner in a previous tutorial, so again you can contact that there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on session, I'm going to click on SSH, I'm going to give the 192.168.0.56. I'm going to specify the username as Pi. I'm going to connect to the box, and because I've previously connected to it, it's not asking me for my password, but if you've just built your Raspberry Pi image, the password should be Raspberry, and Pi is obviously the default username. Okay, so as with all Raspberry Pi images, first thing you need to do is make sure it is up to date. So you'll sudo su, that'll make you root, and you can do apt update, and then pipe that to apt upgrade. And if you do -y, it should automatically say yes. Hit return and just wait for that to finish. And it looks like I might not have any. Okay, doesn't look like there was anything to update, but that's always good. So we will clear the screen. Okay, and we will install Docker. Now, in order to do that, I just pull this window in. You use a script that's available from get.docker.com. Just move that out of the way just now. And in order to do so, you would do the URL space -ssl, then http:// get.docker.com, and then you're going to use a pipe and pipe that to your shell, which is sh. Hopefully I've got that correct. Okay, my apologies, it's HTTPS, not HTTP, so let's just wait for that to finish. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is add the username pi into the Docker group. So in order to do that, you do usermod dash lowercase a, capital G, so A for add, G for group. The name of the group we want to add, so it's Docker. And then the username we want to add, which is pi. And there we go. Okay, now we're going to install Portainer to make it easier to manage our Docker containers. So in order to do that, we use Docker pull, which means it goes out and gets it from the internet. Portainer slash Portainer dash CE, and then we place a colon, and then we tell it which version that we want to install. So obviously, as this is a Raspberry Pi, it is Nginx ARM, and if we hit return, hopefully that should, there we go, that's it pulling down the layer, the container rather. Okay, so now that we've downloaded that image, we actually have to create a doc with Portainer running in it. Okay, so I'm just going to clear the screen to give us more room. And in order to actually take advantage of Portainer, we need a rather long command line coming up. So the command line is docker run, because we want to run a new Docker, -d -p. Now this is the port that the Docker runs on. I believe the -d is for daemon, so it runs in the background. -p is the port that we require the servers to run on, so the actual Docker container. So for Portainer, this is 9000. And then we place a colon and then 9000 again. So the first column is the column which states which port we want in the application to be assigned to, and the second one is which port locally we want it to be assigned to. So I could change the second part of that to 80. So if I tried to connect to the Docker on port 9000, it would mimic my local port on 80 on my machine. For the most part, you'll probably just keep these as whichever the default is, locally and remotely. We then have to give it a name, so we do that by doing --name, and then equals, and the name you want to give it. So in this case, I'm calling it Portainer. If there's any problems with this container, I want it to restart. So in order to ensure that it does that, I do --restart, always, so it will always restart. Now we need to create two variables for this, so we do that using -v, then /var /run /docker .sock and a colon, again /var run docker .sock. This is me setting up a variable that allows Portainer to run other docs within the Docker environment. The next one's where it stores its data, so again we do another -v. We use Portainer _ data /data, data DB, not date. And then we want to point it to the image that we downloaded, so that would be Portainer /Portainer _CE for the community edition, which is a free edition, and a colon, then Nginx -ARM. Hopefully I've got all that correct. Let's find out. No, so I've done something wrong. To the screen. Just before I hit return, I've noticed I've made a mistake here. I believe that should be -CE. Let's try that. There we go. Okay. So that looks like that was successful. So let's test it. So we would open a web browser and do 192.168.0.56, which was the IP address of the Raspberry Pi, do colon, and then port 9000. And there we go, Portainer is installed. So let's create an admin account. So we will do snips. Give it a password. Okay, and I'll just click create user. And there we go. Just save my password. And we're now inside Portainer, so we can set up roles and we can set up groups, set up different things in the environment and different settings. Go back to home. You can see we've got a kind of overview here, and it already shows that I have one container. And obviously that's the current one that I'm actually using. Okay, so let's suppose we wanted to set up a Nginx container. So we would click over here on our actual Docker running locally. We would then click on images, and inside docker.io we'll try Nginx, which is the name of a web server. Click pulled image, see if this works. Okay, so now that we've got that done, we can click on our image here. As you can see, that's Nginx latest. And we can see some more information about it. Okay, so now that we've got our image, we'll have to go into the containers. We can click on add a container. We'll give it a name, so web server. Then we need to select the image that we want. So that will be Nginx. And I think the rest can actually be left as default. So I'm just going to click deploy the container and give it a moment. As you see, we now have a web server, and the web server is now running. So in theory, it's not showing any published ports, but we'll give it a go anyway. Maybe I made a mistake there. So 192.168.0.56. Okay, that didn't work. So let's go back in here. Okay, so I've just realized that I made a mistake when creating my container. I didn't assign any ports to it. So what I'll do is I'll click here and I'll click remove, and then I'll tell it to automatically remove non-persistent volumes. Just click remove. And I'm going to click add container. Again, I'm going to call it web server. And again, it's going to be based on Nginx. Okay, that's the same as last time. However, I didn't set a network port, so I do that by clicking the plus here and giving it the host port. So that's the port that it's running on container. So that's port 80 for a web server. That's the port that it's running on in my machine that I want it to redirect to. And the container port is the port that it's running on within the container. This is my local machine effectively, and this is a container port. So if I do that and then click deploy the container, we now have a web server running, but unlike last time, we can see that it's running on port 80. So if I now open this up and do 192.168.0.56, 80 is the default, you can see Nginx is currently running. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you disliked this video, give it a dislike too. If you get feedback on this or any other videos or suggestions for videos you believe we should do in the future, then please let us know in the comments below. And most of all, thank you for watching.